Naomi Girma, the United States women's national team center back, set to join Chelsea. We talked about it last week, but the destination has now become clear. The number closer to confirmation, $1.1 million for Naomi Girma. Perhaps playing at Chelsea, she'll have a chance at the Ballon d'Or. What do you make of all this now that we kind of have, we're getting closer? I think we'll talk to Jeff Reuter about this. He did a piece on her in The Athletic, but this is doubling the transfer record in the women's game before. Emma Hayes says she's the best center back she's ever seen. So, quite a moment for women's soccer, Naomi Girma, and NWSL, really.
Yeah, I saw. I don't have the Blue Sky post in front of me. I wish I did, because I'd like to be able to quote it directly and give credit where it's due. But I saw something with this news that said we've doubled the women's transfer record in a year. Right, we went from a Bay FC spending 500 or whatever, that's 750, or before that, within a year we've gone from 500,000 to $1 million. Yep. At this pace. The record was set in the men's game, which I think is Neymar, like 232 million. The women's game will get there by 2032 or something. You do the math. Now, obviously, like it won't always be. This isn't like computer chips, whatever that law was that said computer chips will double in processing speed every so. I mean, I don't think it's quite like that, but it is remarkable. Now, there are two ways to look at this, Rob. Right, there are a couple of different angles on this story that I think are worth discussing for us, and Nate's bringing up one of them, and maybe we focus on the negative and then go to the positive. Quite a bad moment for the NWSL. Now, what Nate's saying is, of course, you can't hold on to your best American talent because the money's not there. Now, Naomi Girma wanted out of San Diego. Lots of people are wanting out of San Diego. We don't want to have time to dive into what's going on in San Diego.
Yeah, I was going to say, you piqued my curiosity. What's going on?
Oh, you need to go look into that yourself.
Okay,
you need to go. That is independent research. We don't have time to talk about Jill Ellis and lawsuits and sexual harassment. And cultural problems and Casey Stoney. We don't have time to do any of that.
Okay,
but we will say that just as a part of this story about Naomi Girma, she wanted out of San Diego. Now, if she wants out of San Diego, and the NWSL does not have a cash market, which MLS just instituted, NWSL does not have that yet, then you would have to trade for Naomi Girma within NWSL. And I'm going to guess that there aren't many teams willing to trade their assets, the tradable assets that they have within the structure of NWSL, which is very similar to what MLS has, right? With allocation money and roster spots and players. Like, what can you trade? There was probably nobody who had a package that was going to entice San Diego, like $1.1 million was going to entice San Diego. Right, Rob? Mm-hmm. So is this a problem for the NWSL, or is it just progress in women's football that we need to make peace with? Right? So I don't think the NWSL is suddenly not a top league in women's football because Naomi Girma goes to Chelsea for $1.1 million. Chelsea is tied. Obviously, the women's team is very successful, but the Chelsea is tied to the men's team. And as a unit, as an organization, they got a little bit more cash than any of these NWSL teams have lying around, right?
And they're willing to. The ownership of Chelsea aren't making comments like the Manchester United leadership is making comments about their women's side. But I don't think it has to be a good or a bad thing. It kind of shows where the women's game is almost on a more of a level playing field at their advancement than the men's game. It isn't like the European game is this monolith, and the MLS is trying to sneak in there. The tide is rising equally on both sides. So I think there will be were people decrying the transfer inbound of that Spanish defender who got the $500,000 dollar transfer last year? I mean, I think it might be a healthy competition of teams competing with each other for the top talent.
Yeah, I think that if you were just if you want to be overly negative about what this means for NWSL, you can certainly find a way to think of this as a problem for NWSL, which, look, as a growing league, in a growing sport, in a world in which women's football is finally getting some respect, NWSL has lots of challenges. Right. And again, I think if you are in the weeds and you're a very close watcher of NWSL, you can find lots of reasons not to like what's happening from a leadership level with Jessica Berman, despite her being recognized for awards and such, or San Diego as an example. Or maybe you think the way that Denver won the expansion race doesn't feel on the up and up, or that the money there it seems like a bubble. Though you can find reasons to question those things. But I also think that in the general marketplace of women's football, this was always bound to happen. And it's a good thing. What I like about this, here's a reason to be positive. It's an American who generated this fee, right? And a defender,
Right.
a defender at that, right? And I hope we get to talk to Jeff Reuter about this. She is a defender who is setting this record, who it gets the first transfer fee over $1 million. Now, it's only $850,000 in pounds, which is kind of annoying. Like, I'd like to make it £1 million and make it a nice round number in England, in the Women's Super League. But this is still great for Naomi Girma to be recognized at this level. And you said something which I hate is true. Okay, I hate that this is true. And it was always bound to happen that culturally, because the footballing nations are concentrated in Europe, that the way the game is perceived was going to kind of flow out of Europe, even though America was first with our national team being great, and even though we've established a league and all these things, and clubs are growing, and the sport is catching on here or gaining ground. Naomi Girma, to get the proper recognition, the recognition she deserves, has to be in Europe. That's sad, but it's true. It's true. If she wins a Ballon d'Or, it's going to happen while she's in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, you're right there in the microscope in London, from California to London. I'm kind of curious as to how that transition goes. Much different spots. Definitely not the sunny beaches of San Diego in London. And then also this transfer, does this happen? I mean, obviously she's got the stature for it, and obviously the playing ability, but I'm curious what the Emma Hayes connection, how she impacted the ending location for this transfer. I mean, obviously she has glowing things to say. She says Naomi Girma is the best center back I've ever seen, and then Girma lands where her national team coach used to be. And so so the addition of Emma Hayes, obviously it's reaped huge benefit in the 9-10 months or so she's been at the helm. But then she's getting her players in some spots that they may not have otherwise.
I mean, I think Naomi Girma would have generated attention and could have maybe gotten a big transfer or been a player with this kind of heat on her no matter what. I think there's a recognition she is a world-class defender. But yeah, I mean, look, if Chelsea, if there is sort of a race, or if there are teams that are like, oh, should we buy Naomi Girma? And Sandy was like, well, it's going to cost you $1 million. And your former successful head coach manager, who is now managing Naomi Girma at the national team level, you pick up the phone or you shoot her a text and you're like, Emma, is Naomi Girma worth $1 million? She's going to pay F yes. Believe, I don't know, we cursing on this show? Emma Hayes is the type of person that would say, absolutely, you pay $1 million for Naomi Girma, right? So, this, you think you're right that this helped. Again, Girma's reputation is big enough. She probably would have gotten some attention, but I don't know if it would have been $1 million, because Chelsea definitely has vouching for Naomi Girma with somebody they have a very strong connection with. So there is that.
I mean, curious to see how this all plays out. I'm curious to see when she'll go over there, if that'll be immediately, if there'll be some sort of delay on that. But I mean, we shall see. Naomi Girma, the first $1 million NWSL player. Pretty remarkable stuff. We'll see. One thing I do want to ask Jeff is, does the inflation of the expansion team and the inflation of the transfer fee, if those are linked in any way? So we'll have to come to that. Thank you for tuning in to our headlines here, long balls here on Morning Kick Around. If you haven't already, tell your friends, tell your family, and even create an account and tell your kids to subscribe to Morning Kick Around on YouTube channel. We have blasted past our 500 subscriber goal. So we are kicking on to 1,000 subscribers. That's what we want to do moving forward. Help us become the town square, the water cooler spot, and the central hub for the American soccer conversation. You can follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, or write us a little message, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Always love to get an email.